Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed. At 1,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. The belt slices the air again. I grip the counter edge. Glass skitters across tile. My feet find traction and halt. Move, the voice thuds from the doorway. I keep breathing through my teeth, small quiet draws. I'm Mara Ionescu, 17. My hands stay visible and empty. Late again, he says while tapping the buckle against his thigh. I reach for the sink and twist the knob once. Water hisses just enough to hide my pulse. The fridge door stands open and leaking cold. He nudges it shut with his knee, eyes never leaving me. You skipped calls, he says, and holds out his palm. I slide my phone across inch by inch, screen dark. He flips it. He searches for codes and finds none. Unlock. He leans in so close I taste metal. I nod like I agree and press power longer. The wipe screen blooms white, his mouth tightens without sound. He lunges. I step back hard and knock the broom. It clatters. He grabs my wrist and squeezes once. Try me again, he whispers through teeth that don't part. Footsteps creak above us, small and careful and listening. Dan peeks over the stair rail and freezes. My brother's hair sticks up, his eyes dart to the belt. Back upstairs, I say with one raised finger. He retreats as if the steps might snap under him. The grip loosens. I pocket the phone shell. Mess, he mutters and points at the glass trail. I crouch and gather shards with a dishcloth. My palm stings as a line opens and blooms. Blood dots the cloth. I wrap it tight and hide it. He watches the floor like it insulted him today. After school, he says and jerks his chin to the door. Home. No detours. No friends. I nod and let the order sit there. He returns the belt to the hook near the hall. Leather hangs like a quiet rule that never sleeps. My shoulders relax, but only on the outside. Mom stands in the hallway with a folded towel. Her fingers twist the corner until threads lift. Breakfast, she whispers without looking up at me. I walk past her and smell burnt sugar and nerves. I cut bread with a dull knife and steady grip. He eats while scrolling through nothing that matters. Mom turns on the radio, then lowers the volume. Dan steps paws at the top again, counting beats. Shoes, I say, and keep my eyes on the sink. He comes down with laces dragging and mouth set. I kneel and tie them tight, double knots, and promise. Straight to the gate, I murmur. He blinks twice. Backpack on. Hood up. Door latch groans to open. Cold air rushes in like a dare I accept. He blocks the threshold with one arm and a stare. Phone stays here until trust returns. Fine. I shrug like it means nothing at all. I slide the SIM from the dead shell edge. It disappears under my tongue and edges my words. He misses it because victory blinds him too often. We step into the stairwell with paint peeling in curls. Dan taps my elbow twice in our old code. I answer with 3 taps, go plan, no delay. His eyes sharpen like he finally understands the clock. On the landing, a neighbor jiggles her keys and pauses. She meets my stare and tilts her head toward the exit. Her mouth makes a small line that reads be quick. I nod and push the door so hard it rattles. Street noise slaps us and wakes everything. I guide Dan toward the corner kiosk and stop short. A police car idles near the bus stop and steams. He squeezes my hand and waits for my next move. School path B, I whisper and flick my eyes left. We cut through the courtyard and past the dumpsters. A cat bolts across our shoes like a thrown rag. Dan stifles a laugh and keeps pace with me. At the alley mouth I scan for the gray van. It's there again, same dense, engine ticking in place. The driver pretends to text while watching the entrance. My skin prickles like power lines in rain. We pull back and circle behind the bakery. I press Dan against the wall and lower my voice. New route, I say, and draw a quick map in air. He nods once and stays exactly where I put him. I sprint to the kiosk and grab a top-up. Coins hit the tray. The clerk's eyes flick to my cut. You good, he murmurs while sliding change with care. Later, I answer and tuck the credit deep. Back to Dan. We cross under the scaffolding and turn. The van creeps toward the main road and misses us. I exhale for 1 second and then stop myself. Breathing is a luxury I borrow and return fast. At the school gate, I press Stan inside the flow. Wait near the office and don't move, I say. He nods and disappears into the hallway noise. I pivot and head for the back fence alone. Behind the gym, the fence leans and invites climbing. I jam my sneaker in the bend and pull up. Shirt snags. Skin scrapes. I swing over and drop. Gravel bites my ankles and clears my head. I cross to the library where the cameras don't reach. A delivery scooter blocks the alley with a loose strap. I slide behind it and fish out a taped key. It clicks into my palm like it belongs there. The staff entrance door fits the key without a fight. Inside smells like dust and toner and ancient gum. I ignore it and go straight to the copier room. One drawer hides exactly what I left yesterday. A flat envelope. 3 pages. A transit card. I slide the card into my sock and retape the key. The envelope rides under my jacket and warms fast. I lock the door again and smooth my heartbeat. Back outside, I melt into students and adults and traffic. A message pings in my head like a phantom tone. Bus at 10:12, platform 3, no delays today. I set my course and do not blink. The van waits 2 blocks down with the engine off. I walk like I have nowhere urgent except class. At the corner, I drop the dead shell into a grate. Water swallows it and resets the scoreboard. The police car turns slowly and scans faces. I angle my jaw away and fix my hood. A street preacher shouts about truth and wages and dust. I slip past him and let the noise cover me. Platform 3 yawns ahead with students and suits. I pick a spot near the stairs for quick exit. The transit card lights green and opens the gate. Behind me, a voice calls my name, too loud to ignore. I turn half an inch and catch Mom's face. She is breathless and pale and holding a lunch bag. Our eyes lock and fight without words for air. She presses the bag into my hands and trembles. Eat later, she whispers and glances over her shoulder. Her gaze lands on the far entrance and stays there. Be careful, she breathes and steps backward once. The lunch bag is heavier than food should be. I don't open it yet because timing matters. The platform screen flips to 10:12 with a chime. I edge closer to the yellow line and keep scanning. The far entrance boils with movement that smells like trouble. The van man appears on the stairs with a cap. He looks right through people until he finds me. I slip sideways into a knot of students and crouch. Train lights gather in the tunnel like a countdown. Doors open. People spill. Alarm sings in my chest. I step in with my head down and shoulders small. The man shoves through just as the beeps begin. The doors close on his coat and then bite free. Through the glass he smiles like a promise postponed. I stare until the tunnel eats his face and cap. My reflection stares back with blood on one knuckle. The lunch bag sits on my lap and waits. I tear the lunch bag open on my knees. Inside, cash wrapped tight, a low-end handset, a locker slip. A single line on a napkin reads "Today only." My throat tightens as the doors shutter again. I slide the SIM from under my tongue. It clicks into the handset and boots slow. Bars blink to life, 1, then 2, then steady. A message drops in with an unknown number. Platform 11 after transfer. Blue backpack. Trust the scar. I glance around the carriage without lifting my head. 2 tourists argue about seats and block the aisle. A man watches the reflection more than the view. I grip the envelope under my jacket. 3 pages still inside, edges warm from running. Locker number matches the slip from the bag. I tuck everything flat and zip my coat tight. The train pulls into the next station with a jerk. I step off with the crowd and keep mid-pack. Cameras sweep the platform and then hitch on faces. I adjust my hood and angle into the stairwell. Footfalls sink behind me, heavy and patient and close. I cut left through a newsstand line and pause. The footsteps continue straight and fade into chatter. I exhale once, then hold it again on purpose. The handset vibrates once in my sleeve. Do not use exits near taxis. Walk to tram link. I change course without breaking stride or pace. A cleaner blocks a corridor with a mop and nod. Tram signs bloom ahead like a path I requested. I join a cluster of students with sports bags. We jostle through gates while inspectors check wristbands. No one checks me because they check them hard. My phone hums again with a short ping. Locker 23C needs the blue card. Check the lining. I search the lunch bag and find a taped fold. A thin card slides free and catches my breath. The tram doors open and shove stale air out. I step in near the hinge and face the glass. A face I know appears outside and scans rows. I pivot behind a tall guy and study his shoes. He boards just before the chime and drifts back. I don't look at him because that invites pursuit. My hands press the lunch bag between coat and ribs. The handset rests against my wrist and waits. Next stop. I hop off and cross 3 tracks. He follows and pretends to study a map. I use the reflection on the ticket machine. He tilts his head like he smells a trail. I duck into the underpass and switch tempo. Feet quick, shoulders soft, eyes forward and blink. A busker thumps a drum and startles a couple. I slip behind them and take the far stairs. The handset buzzes with a single dot. Escalator right side. 3rd step. Drop the napkin. I obey and let the napkin flutter near a shoe. A woman in a coat scoops it up without looking. At the top, heat rolls from the crowd like warnings. He emerges from the other side and scans again. The woman brushes my arm and keeps walking. Scar on right eyebrow, she murmurs under her breath. I answer with a nod I barely show. She doesn't glance back, just changes lanes and disappears. I head for the lockers near the rental bikes. The blue card slides and unlocks with a clack. Inside, another envelope and a strip of tape. Also a transit schedule with 2 routes circled. I pocket the schedule and reseal the door. He turns toward the lockers and lifts his chin. I move. Past a coffee cart. Past a trash bin. Into the bookstore and out the back door. My legs burn but keep a clean rhythm. He loses line of sight and speeds up anyway. I hit the service corridor and count steps. 7 to the loading bay. 5 to the ladder. I climb 2 rungs then drop to the other side. Alarms stay quiet and my pulse covers the rest. The handset dings with another short text. Bus terminal entry B, platform 12. No stops. I join a delivery crew pushing a squeaky dolly. Nobody asks because the dolly makes me part of something. Terminal signs rise ahead through the glass doors. Security checks bags at random and waves others through. I choose the longer lane with an elderly pair. They grouse about schedules and distract the guard. He clears me with a grunt and a board scan. I veer right toward a kiosk and keep moving. Blue backpacks everywhere like a joke I didn't plan. I need the scar and I need it now. A girl near platform 12 pulls her hair back. A faint line crosses her eyebrow and fades. Her bag rests by her ankles and never shifts. She looks up as if she heard my thoughts. Locker drop complete, I say and adjust my scarf. She scratches her sleeve and glances at my hands. Ticket? Her eyes flick to the board and back. I show the schedule corner and tilt my head. 2 routes, she says while swinging her bag. 3 now, I answer and tap my pocket. She smiles like a dare she can win. Follow me, then lose me in 20 seconds. We board the bus through the rear door. I sit middle row with an empty seat to spare. She stands by the driver and talks about nothing. The bus pulls out and clears the terminal ramp. My handset buzzes with one more line. Count to 20. Exit at the square. Switch to 50. I start counting under my breath and watch mirrors. He sprints along the sidewalk and misjudges the turn. At 20, I stab the stop button and rise. The doors open slow, then leap as pressure releases. I step down and let the crowd fold around me. The bus rolls away with the girl still smiling. I cut across the square and head for the 50. A street seller waves a flyer near my face. I grab it and use it as a shield. Behind it, the envelope edges scrape my palm. The 50 arrives and lets me in without fuss. I stand near the joint and keep my feet wide. My eyes find the transfer gate on the map. My stomach refuses food but tightens for work. 1 stop before the gate, I call the school office. Emergency pickup for my brother at noon, I say. Authorized, the voice replies with a beep and click. I hang up and stash the handset deep. Transfer completed. New platform. New watchers. A uniform lingers mid-concourse and pretends to stretch. I circle around a repair crew and mask my path. My shoulder brushes a sign and leaves sweat behind. I reach platform 11 and scan for a signal. Blue backpack girl stands across the tracks and nods once. She points to a vending machine near an empty bench. I go there and crouch to tie my shoe. A small parcel waits under the frame, taped tight. I palm it and rise as a train thunders past. He appears again on the far side and paces. We stare across steel that keeps us honest for now. I board with a new crowd and angle toward the door. The parcel opens with a neat pull tab. Inside, a slim wallet with 2 IDs and a card. Also a single phrase on a folded strip, "Tonight North." The carriage rocks and jolts toward the river bridge. I lean against the pole and press the envelope flat. Dan's pickup locked. Next checkpoint set. I watch the door as if it might bite. I press the parcel flat against my thigh and breathe. The train brakes hard and throws everyone forward a step. I brace on the pole and scan the doors. A uniform waits on the next platform like a gatekeeper. I switch carriages before the doors lock again. A woman blocks a man with her tote and laughs. I slip through the gap and keep my head low. The doors shut and the uniform fades behind glass. I crack the wallet open with my thumb. 2 clean IDs stare back with my face almost right. One shows a different surname and a new address. The card gleams and promises a path I can test. At the bridge, I tap the contactless pad. It registers a balance and flashes a timestamp. Good enough for now if questions stay shallow. I pocket the wallet and watch the station names blur. Next stop. I step off and let bodies carry me. Stairs rise in 3 flights and choke the flow. Halfway up, a shoulder clips mine and lingers. I turn and catch the driver from the van. He smiles like we are old friends at market. I keep moving and count each rise to the top. He chooses the escalator and checks his watch. I reach the doors first and cut left hard. Outside, traffic bellows and hides footsteps. I use a delivery truck as moving cover. In its mirror, I watch the driver weave lanes. He keeps pace and tilts his head toward me. My handset buzzes once in the coat lining. North gate closed at 11. Use east. 2-minute window. I pocket the phone and shorten my stride a notch. Running draws eyes and eyes bring questions I cannot answer. I pass a pharmacy and buy adhesive strips with cash. The clerk points at my hand and frowns. I press a strip over the cut and flex. No blood now. No signal of weakness to follow. Dan's pickup time approaches and the board flips. I reroute to the school using the back streets. The driver shadows 2 blocks behind and pretends to browse. I turn twice, then step into a narrow passage. The passage spits me out near the gym annex. A wire fence bows inward just enough for a shoulder. I push through and snag my jacket on a twist. Fabric tears and a cold line bites my arm. Office door. Buzzer. A camera tilts and settles. I hold the handset to the speaker and wait. Pickup confirmed. The intercom crackles and unlocks. I step inside and wipe sweat on my sleeve. The receptionist glances at a list, then at me. Signature. Her pen taps the counter in short bursts. I sign with the new surname and steady lines. She checks the form, then reaches for the phone. Change of plan, I say, and point behind her. She turns just enough for me to read the display. The call would go upstairs and bring delay. I slide the form toward her and nod once. Footsteps drum the corridor and the door swings. Dan barrels out with his backpack crooked and ready. He sees my jacket and swallows a question hole. Let's go, I tell him and grip his shoulder. Outside again. Airtight with noise and signal. I scan the street and locate the driver by a kiosk. He pretends to read a ticket and checks reflections. Dan notices and squeezes my wrist until it hurts. New game, I whisper and lean close to him. Count to 15, then trip near the curb. He nods and starts walking with a wobble. At 15, he falls and cries out just enough. People turn and cluster like magnets around a spill. I pull him up and thank 3 strangers quickly. The driver loses sight while we swerve behind a van. We bolt toward the tram link and do not look back. The handset hums again near the stairs. Use platform 4. Conductor knows. Ask for an orange receipt. I keep one hand on Dan and one on the rail. We cross the hall and blend with a school group. A supervisor tries to check wristbands at the gate. I present the transit card and look bored. She waves us through while scolding a boy for chewing. Dan stifles a grin and matches my pace. Platform 4 yawns wide with 2 trains idling. A conductor leans out and studies faces like lottery numbers. I draw near and lift the envelope edge an inch. His forehead relaxes and he taps the step twice. Orange receipt, I say and keep my voice flat. He tears a small stub from a roll and nods. Switch cars after the tunnel, he murmurs and points up. We climb the steps and slip into the end coach. Doors close. Motion returns. Pressure eases then spikes again. I count poles and doors and sight lines automatically now. Dan swings his feet and watches the window blur. He stops when a shadow passes the glass and lingers. The driver appears at the far door with a cap. He moves aisle to aisle like a net closing slowly. I stand and block his view with my shoulder. Dan ducks under the seat and ties his laces again. At the tunnel mouth, I pull the emergency link. The 2 coaches part in a controlled shuffle. We step through the gap as instructed and settle. The driver miscalculates and ends in the wrong car. The conductor drifts by and checks my stub. He taps the window twice and avoids my eyes. At the next station, he opens the opposite door. We exit fast and reboard 3 cars forward. New passengers. New variables. Same purpose drilled in bones. I angle us near the exit and breathe in counts. Dan leans into my side and whispers just once. Is Mom coming? He asks and stares at the floor. Not now, I answer and touch his sleeve. We meet someone first, then we head north. He nods like he believes the order of things. His jaw sets and he stares at the map. River crossing. Signal delay. Announcement cracks and fades. I use the pause to open the lunch bag. Under a sandwich lies a folded knit cap. Inside the cap sits a tiny key with numbers etched. The number matches a locker at the bus depot. Northbound written in the parcel now makes sense. I slide the key into my sock and nod. Dan watches my face and reads the decision. The train pulls in and doors pop wide. We step onto the platform and take the stairs. An officer stands at the top and scans the flow. I slow half a step and angle toward the lift. A couple pushes a stroller into the gap. The officer steps back and lets them through. We slide past his shoulder and hold our breath. He turns as if he caught a scent on the wind. We break left into the shopping concourse and cut through. A store alarm chirps then dies and draws eyes. I use the noise to change direction without warning. Dan keeps up and never asks a single thing. Bus depot doors ahead with guards checking random bags. I show the wallet with the newer name and cough. The guard glances at Dan then at the clock. He waves us by and speaks into a radio. Locker row. Numbers blur then snap into order. We reach our slot and test the tiny key. The door swings open and reveals a compact pack. On top sits a printed ticket with 21.40 north. I flip the pack flap and find 2 rain covers. Also a sealed envelope with a bold X on it. Instructions printed on the back read open at seat. I close everything and hand Dan the smaller cover. Bathroom then platform 12, I tell him softly. Wash your hands and wait by the dryer. He nods and darts away with quick steps. I track the corridor and clock the exits as I move. In the mirror I check for tails and count to 10. The driver steps into view 2 mirrors back. He adjusts his cap and lines up his pockets. I splash water on my face and change my path. The staff corridor runs parallel to the public one. A cleaner leaves a door cracked and hums. I slip through and follow the arrows towards storage. A second exit spills us near the coach bays. Platform 12 glows on the board and holds steady. Passengers gather in loose clumps with tired shoulders. I text the unknown number with a single letter. A reply returns with a seat number and an aisle. Dan appears behind me with damp cuffs and bright eyes. He spots the driver across the hall and points. The driver points back with 2 fingers like a claim. Our bus opens its doors and calls passengers in. We board with measured steps and keep our heads down. Seats near the rear promise distance and a view. I shove the pack under and crack the sealed envelope. Inside lies a phone and a small device with one button. The note reads "Press if followed, then wait." I slide the device into my sleeve and test the click. The driver climbs aboard and scans the rows slowly. His gaze lingers on our aisle and then drifts away. The bus idles and the driver of the bus checks tickets. Our printed passes pass inspection with a bored nod. I steady my breathing and rest a hand on the device. Outside, the van guy takes a seat in the front row. He places a bag in the overhead and smiles. The coach doors hiss as if sealing a pact. I meet Dan's eyes and count down with my fingers. 3, 2, 1. My thumb taps the little button and holds. The coach shudders as the radio crackles near the driver. Front row turns as a tiny light blinks under a seat. The man from the van lifts his bag a fraction. A voice on the radio barks for a baggage sweep. The driver steps into the aisle with a practiced stare. "Tickets again," he announces, and starts at the front. I lace my fingers together and wait for the ripple. I touch Dan's elbow and tilt my head right. We slide across to the opposite side mid-check. 2 rows back, clearer angle, cleaner exit line. The man clocks the shift and shows his teeth. "Random inspection at the next bay," the driver calls. Front row groans while the radio repeats the order. The man rests his bag on his toes and smiles. I can't see his hands, only the patience. I text the unknown number, one word, "tripped." A reply lands before I lock the screen, "Stop 2." I squeeze Dan's shoulder twice and fold smaller. The seat fabric scratches like a warning I earned. The coach rolls, lanes merge, speed climbs steadily. The man nudges something under his chair with care. A coin-sized disc rolls toward me and sticks. I slide my heel and flick it down the aisle. Dan leans close and whispers behind his wrist. If he stands, we freeze, then bolt at the bay. I nod without looking and count pulls to the back. The driver announces a 5-minute pause ahead. The radio chirps again. Front row stays seated. The man rises anyway and blocks the aisle casually. He stretches, watches, blocks again with a laugh. I cough twice and press the call button hard. "Kid is carsick," I say as the driver leans in. "Needs a bag or we repaint your floor." The driver winces and hands me a stiff sack. The man steps aside, annoyed, but not enough. Toll gate slows us and forces a crawl. I peel the device from my sleeve and press. A soft buzz answers, then the cabin lights blink. The driver pulls into the inspection bay on impulse. Doors open. Air hits. Movement breaks into pieces. 2 attendants climb aboard with vests and scanners. Front row baggage, one calls while the other points. The man slides his bag under his knees and grins. I stand with the sack and wobble once. Dan mirrors me, pale, convincing, focused. We shuffle backward toward the rear exit quietly. The attendants argue over a barcode that won't read. Outside the bay, a woman in a knit hat waves. Her glance cuts from me to the service building. I angle Dan that way and mouth 3 words, "Meet the dryers." She nods and vanishes behind a maintenance door. Rest area. Doors hiss. Feet spill onto concrete. The man steps down and scans the lot slowly. I keep Dan close and steer toward the vending wall. The handset pings with a square code and a number. I hold the screen near an unmarked panel and wait. A slot slides open with a hard click. Inside, caps, scarves, wipes, and a folded route stub. Also a peel-off sticker with a bus line printed. We pull on the caps and smudge our cheeks with wipes. Dan studies the stub and points at a side bay. Special service boards there with a small crowd forming. The man eyes a different lane and rubs his jaw. He talks into his phone with his back to us. North ramp drifts over the idling engines like static. I walk us toward the south ramp, then brake sharply. We cut behind a truck and emerge at the side bay. The special coach reads our stub and beeps approval. The driver checks the print and jerks a thumb inside. We take the 3rd row from the back and hunker. Across the lot, our first bus loads again. The man hustles toward the original coach and boards. He scans the rows, angry, confident, hunting shadows. Doors seal and both vehicles rumble in different lanes. Our driver smiles at the mirror and taps the wheel. A new text lands with one order: discard the trigger. I crack the plastic and split the board in two. Pieces drop into separate bins near the heater. Dan watches my hands and finally exhales. Will she join us? He asks without shifting his eyes. Later, I answer and touch the route stub once. He nods and stuffs his cap lower over his ears. He watches the window like it might talk. The special coach clears the bay and hits the bypass. A highway sign points toward the ferry connection ahead. Another message appears, Midnight Gate, show the lower ID. I slide the wallet out and check the second photo. Headlights flare in the opposite lane and fade quickly. Our driver announces one last checkpoint before the docks. A police van waits near the merge with scanners raised. I reach for Dan's hand under the seat and squeeze. The police van waves us into the lane and slows traffic. An officer steps onto our bus and sweeps the rows. He stops 2 seats ahead and points at bags. My fingers curl around the wallet and hold. Papers. He stands square and waits for movement. I lift the second ID and keep my face loose. Dan mirrors me and steadies his breathing. The officer studies the plastic, then checks his tablet. A beep answers and his jaw ticks once. Step off, he orders and jabs toward the curb. We rise and file down behind a family. I count steps and map exits as we go. On the asphalt, he gestures to a table. Another officer pats Dan's backpack and frowns. Anything sharp? She asks while watching his shoes. Dan shakes his head and keeps his gaze down. My handset vibrates once against my ribs. Booth C has friendly staff. Ask for Mira. I scan the checkpoint and find a small booth. A woman there catches my glance and nods. The first officer holds my ID to the light. Traveling where? He asks while checking the hologram. Northport, I answer and point at the ticket. He grunts and scribbles something on a pad. Secondary, he says and motions us left. A temporary fence forms a corridor to a tent. People line up with tired shoulders and blank eyes. I steer Dan behind a couple with a stroller. The tent air feels heavy and impatient and loud. A clerk stamps forms and waves people past. Our turn arrives faster than I want it to. I lean in and place the ID on the tray. Mira, I say, and tap the counter twice. Her eyebrow twitches like a hidden switch. Random screening only, she replies and reaches under. 2 orange bands slide out and stop between us. Wrist, she says and points at the bands. I fasten Dan's first and press mine tight. Gate 8 then shuttle 3, she adds and blinks. Her finger flicks toward a side exit nobody uses. Outside, the Tenna guard blocks the crowd briefly. He radios something and scratches his chin. We slip through the side exit and hug the railing. The guard turns, looks past us and forgets. The shuttle stop lists destinations in stuttering letters. 3 minutes, Dan whispers and checks the board. I scan the lot and find our shadow near Bay 4. He watches the main doors and misses the side lane. The shuttle brakes hard and doors shoot open. We climb aboard and grab the row near the back. A dock worker sits across and rubs his hands. Early crossing, he mutters to nobody and snorts. We ride to Gate 8 with engines thumping. A long ramp leads to inspection booths at the end. A sign flashes instructions for documents and vans. My chest tightens as our shadow appears behind a truck. He clocks the bands and angles for our line. I nudge Dan and swing to the neighboring queue. A security agent raises a palm and redirects us. Family's right side, she says and pushes us forward. At the podium, I present the lower ID. The scanner chirps and displays a green square. The agent glances at Dan's band and stamps his ticket. Boat level 2, she says and points down the ramp. We move, steady and quick and silent. The pursuer tries our original line and stalls. His voice spikes at the agent and draws attention. I take the slope faster and feel my legs burn. On the gangway, a siren chirps twice then dies. Crew rushes and yank a chain across the entrance. Capacity reached, one announces and locks the hook. Our shadow argues and flashes something official. A crewman taps his radio and leans toward me. Level 2 seats forward left, he murmurs and winks. I nod and guide Dan through a narrow stair. My pulse hammers, but the rhythm stays useful. We find our row and slide in tight. The envelope marked with an X comes out. Inside, 2 motion pills and a plastic tag. Printed on the tag, Lifeboat Muster A14. I pocket the tag and pass Dan a pill. He swallows dry and closes his eyes briefly. The deck groans and ropes clatter against metal. The ferry inches back from the dock while voices rise. Our shadow appears on the quay and stares up. He talks into his phone and points at the bridge. A small team gathers near a security door. I duck lower and adjust my cap by inches. A crewwoman patrols the aisle and checks bands. She scans ours and nods once. "Drills tonight," she says with a bored tone. "Keep the tag on you at all times." I text the number with one phrase, "On board level 2." The reply lands fast, "Bridge camera blind at 0:05. Also, move to A14 at drill start." I stash the phone and watch the hallway entrance. Dan leans against me with a steady stare. "No sleeping," he says and stretches his neck. "Not until they give up," I answer without blinking. He grins weakly and cracks his knuckles. A trolley rattles by with sealed crates. 2 crew push hard and grunt once. I fall in behind them as they turn the corner. The shadow would lose us if he boards late. We reach a door marked crew only and pause. The taller worker blocks the view and coughs. 2 minutes, he whispers and unlatches the brace. We slip through and follow the narrow passage. The passage bends twice and opens to stairs. A catwalk overlooks the vehicle deck below. Dock workers secure straps and wave to the bridge. I spot our pursuer at the loading ramp again. "Keep moving," I whisper and push Dan ahead. We descend 1 flight and cut through storage. I keep my hand on the pack and count. 15 doors. 1 open hatch. A ladder down. Lower level smells like oil and seawater and urgency. Footsteps echo above us in angry bursts. I lead us to a maintenance alcove and stop. A clock on the wall ticks toward midnight. At 0:03, the loudspeaker calls a drill. Passengers shuffle and grumble and rise in clusters. We slip back up and join the flow. A crewman waves tags toward A14 with a flare. Our pursuer finally steps onto the deck and scans. He misses the tag in my fist and looks past. I steer Dan to the muster zone and hold. Whistles shriek and drown out names and orders. The bridge camera probably turns blind right now. I guide Dan along the rail to a service gate. The gate opens an inch and a hand beckons. "Friend of the knit hat," a voice whispers, urgent. We squeeze through the gap and drop to a catwalk. The door clicks closed and the voices fade. The catwalk shakes and leads toward lifeboat cradles. Wind knifes at us and steals words mid-breath. "Locker 9 under cradle A14, the voice insists. "Take what you find and move to the crew stair." The figure retreats into shadow before I can answer. I crawl under the cradle and reach for the latch. Inside the locker, thin ponchos and a sealed pouch. Also a laminated strip with 2 numbers and arrows. The arrows point toward a hatch above the davit. I shove the items under my coat and signal Dan. Our pursuer appears on the upper deck and leans over. He sweeps the lower levels and stops on our rail. I flatten against the beam and hold my breath. His phone flashes as he takes a picture. Drill sirens die and doors start to close. We sprint along the catwalk to the crew stair. A crewman holds it open with his foot and nods. 3 decks up then left, he whispers and vanishes. We climb hard and spill into a quiet hallway. Passengers re-enter cabins and slam doors in bursts. I follow the laminated strip to a dead end. A hatch waits there with fresh bolts and a keypad. The digits on the strip match the pad order. I punch them in and the lock slides back. Behind the hatch, a dark corridor angles toward the bow. Dan squeezes my hand and looks at me for permission. "Finish line," I say, and push the door. Air rushes through as if the ship inhaled. Somewhere behind US boots hit metal with purpose. We run into the dark and do not slow. I slam the hatch behind us and twist the wheel. Metal bites my palms and locks with a dull thud. Boots hammer the corridor we just left. Dan grips my sleeve so tight it hurts. We run bent low until the floor tilts. Pipes rattle overhead like teeth in cold water. A red line on the wall points forward then down. I follow it because choices shrink fast here. A bulkhead blocks the passage with a round window. Through it a ladder drops toward a smaller deck. Voices bounce from the far side and smear together. I count 3, maybe 4, all moving closer. Quiet steps. I touch Dan's shoulder and test the hatch. It gives a little, then sticks on a warped hinge. I force it with my hip and win a handspan. Enough for us if we turn sideways and slide. We squeeze through and breathe in short bursts. The ladder stinks of grease and salt and risk. Halfway down, the ship lurches and jerks my feet. I clamp an arm around Dan and keep going. At the bottom, a narrow door waits unlatched. I push it with my knuckles and peek. A crew catwalk hugs the hull and curves forward. Below it, the sea slaps hard like open hands. 2 minutes to blind spot, whispers the handset. The message glows, then fades before I blink. I pocket it and move, heel to toe steady. Dan mirrors me and keeps his eyes on rails. Shouts echo behind us and scrape my nerves raw. The pursuer has fans or borrowed uniforms already. I pick up pace and count bolts in the grating. 12 to the corner. 8 more to the door. The door leads into a cramped locker bay. Hooks hang empty except for one orange strap. I find a matching ring fixed to the wall. It hides a keypad the size of a deck of cards. The laminated strip fits under the keypad ridge. Numbers light in sequence like a breathing pattern. A panel beside it pops and reveals a handle. I pull it down and hear machinery wake up. Something heavy rolls above us and locks in place. A rectangle of daylight snaps open ahead. Pilot door, low to the water, barely above spray. A rope ladder dangles and slaps the hull hard. Dan watches my face and waits for my nod. 3 rungs, then pause, I tell him, and crouch. I lower him until his feet bite the first rung. He nods, jaw clenched, knuckles white, ready. I swing out after him and test each rung. Cold rope burns into my hands like a warning. We hang there while the ferry leans into a swell. The pilot boat pushes through chop toward our gap. A shout rips across the wind and pins us. The pursuer appears at the catwalk and levels something. Not a gun, too short, maybe a camera or a sensor. I twist my body to block his line on Dan. Down now. I kick the ladder and force speed. Dan drops 3 rungs and waits on command. The pilot reaches us with a thump and a curse. A deckhand tosses a hook and snags the lowest step. 1 at a time. He plants his feet and braces. Kid first, I yell into the noise and point. Dan swings wide, misjudges once, then lands on deck. He scrambles to the rail and locks his arms. The pursuer moves closer and shouts into his radio. 2 figures crowd behind him with clipped strides. One raises binoculars and sweeps the boat. I feel the lens slide over my face like ants. I drop the remaining rungs and jump. The deckhand catches my forearm and hauls hard. I hit the deck and skid into a coil. He kicks the hook free and waves the pilot off. Door closing. The panel above us slams shut. A siren wails once and dies in a cough. The ferry's horn blasts and drowns the rest. Our pilot ducks the bow wave and punches throttle. I crawl to Dan and check his pupils. He nods twice and squeezes my wrist once. The deckhand tosses 2 thin jackets at our knees. Wear them, he barks, then points aft with his chin. The pursuer leans over the rail and points again. Security pours onto the catwalk with clipped urgency. They aim phones and snap pictures like proof hunters. The ferry shrinks while our pilot angles toward darkness. The handset vibrates against my ribs and nags me. Hold course 2 minutes, then turn starboard hard. The pilot's eyes flick to me as if he knows. I lift a hand and show 2 fingers, then curl. He nods and keeps the throttle pinned. Spray lashes our cheeks and steals half our breath. Dan laughs once, short and wild, then clamps his mouth. The pilot checks his watch and starts counting down. 3, 2, now. He wrenches the wheel right. The boat slides sideways and digs into a trough. Water climbs the rails and crashes back over us. We hold on and taste metal and fear. A black shape rises out of the chop ahead. Not a rock, too regular, something floating and anchored. The pilot threads us on its shadowed side with inches. Our wake curls and hides us from the ferry's line. Below, the deckhand kicks open a hatch by his boot. We scramble into a low compartment that smells of fuel. He drops the hatch and bolts it from above. Darkness wraps us and makes our breathing loud. Count 30, I whisper in Dan's ear and wait. Boots thud overhead as the crew moves fast. Engines throttle down, then up, then settle. We rock in a new rhythm that feels deliberate. At 30, the hatch cracks and fresh air pours. The pilot gestures us up and wipes his brow. Next transfer soon, he says, and points off starboard. A harbor wall looms with a small service ladder. Move when I touch your elbow, he adds and watches. We crouch by the rail and let the boat slide. The wall passes like a slow train within arm's reach. A shadowed arch opens with a rattle of chains. His hand taps my elbow once. We vault to the ladder and cling like barnacles. The pilot boat vanishes into the gap with a roar. We climb before nerves catch up and freeze us. At the top, a grated platform waits unguarded. A shutter rolls up with a groan and sticks. A woman in an oil-streaked jacket waves us through. She yanks the shutter down and locks 3 clips. Phones. She holds a tin and stares at me. I drop the handset and watch it vanish under rags. Pouch, she adds, palm out, no patience left. I hand over the sealed packet from the locker stash. She tears it open and checks the contents quickly. A small key, 2 passes, a white sticker, nothing else. She slaps the sticker on my jacket and breathes out. Warehouse E, North Lot, door 4, no questions. Dan tugs my sleeve as metal scrapes below. Voices echo from the arch where we climbed. The woman kills the lights and listens without blinking. Boots hit the first rung and climb fast toward us. Time. She points to a side door and twists a knob. We bolt through into a narrow maintenance tunnel. The air shifts from wet to dust in 2 steps. Our shoes leave prints that might betray us soon. We run until the tunnel S-curves toward a grill. Beyond it, forklifts blink and reverse in quick bursts. A man in a reflective vest stands smoking and counting pallets. He glances at the grill, then looks away on purpose. Door 4. I read the painted numbers and push. It opens into noise and the smell of tires. We blend with the crew moving a stack on rollers. No one checks us because everyone sweats deadlines. A horn blares and drowns any questions. We slip along a row of boxes toward a gate. A scanner guards it with a bored security guy. I flash the pass from the pouch and keep moving. Green light. A beep. He waves us through lazily. Outside, the North Lot yawns with trucks and stray dogs. A boxy van idles near the far fence and flashes once. Knit hat woman steps out and flips a latch. Inside. She looks at Dan first, then at me. Seat belts. No faces at windows. 5 minutes silence. We climb in and strap down while my heart sprints. The doors slam and the van lurches into gear. Through the rear glass, I catch the harbor gate opening. A familiar silhouette jogs out with 2 officers in tow. He points at our row and breaks into a run. The van drops a gear and bolts around a stack. The van fishtails around the stack and bites asphalt. Sirens smear together behind us like one long blade. Knit hat grips the wheel and checks the mirror twice. Belts tight, she mutters, then guns it toward the service road. Dan braces his knees and counts under his breath. I watch the rear glass as 2 cruisers split lanes. A 3rd car appears at the far gate and angles in. Knit hat kills the lights and dives behind a parked rig. Engines roar past without slowing or thinking. She idles in the shadow and waits for a gap. A forklift cuts across the aisle like a shield. We roll out tucked against its flank and vanish. Switch in 1 minute, she says and tosses me tape. Cover the sticker and lose the cap. I rip it off and flatten the edges with my thumb. Dan copies me fast and keeps his eyes on her hands. We burst onto a frontage lane that hugs the fence. A train horn blasts from the overpass ahead. Under it, she warns and threads the pillars clean. I spot the tail car climbing the ramp and pointing down. She stops dead behind a maintenance truck and waits. The squad cars idle above us and hesitate. A container hauler clatters over seams and shakes the bridge. We slip out and take the feeder that curls toward town. Her phone buzzes once on the dash and glows. Warehouse be cleared. Nursery entrance only, she reads flat. She pockets it and jerks her chin to the glove box. Red folder. Tear the corner. Show it if blocked. I pull the folder and rip the marked edge. Inside sits a plastic pass with a chipped corner. The logo means nothing, but the texture screams official. I slide it into my sleeve and nod like staff. Blue strobes flare in the side mirror again. She cuts right into a row of loading bays. 2 dogs bolt and chase us to the ramp. Their noise masks our tires as we drop into shadow. Out, she orders and cracks the rear doors wide. We climb down into a narrow alcove of stacked pallets. Follow the arrows on the floor, she adds without blinking. Door with vines. Knock 4 then 3, no words. She slams the doors and peels away hard. The echo sucks the air from the alcove. Dan looks at me and lifts his chin like a dare. We run the painted line toward a fake greenhouse. The vine door sits ajar and hums with fans. I knock 4 then 3 with my knuckle sharp. A slot slides and shows a sliver of cheekbone. The lock snaps open and a tall figure steps back. Shoes off tray. Hands on hips. Breath steady. Her voice is clipped and unbothered by panic. We obey and stand still while scanners flash. She points to a bench and flicks a switch near the wall. A curtain drops behind us and eats the hallway. Phones, she says with a palm up and bored eyes. I dumped mine, I answer and show empty pockets. She grunts and checks Dan's cuffs like she knows kids. Trouble is 5 minutes away, she says and moves. Sit. When the siren hits, follow me to the lift. I pass her the red pass and the lower ID. She studies both and smiles like the pieces fit. The siren hits hard like a hammer on a rail. She kills the fans and opens a floor hatch. Down now, she barks and drops a compact ladder. We descend into a shaft that tastes like old rain. The lift jerks once then slides smooth and quiet. She keeps 1 boot on the rung and counts. 3 levels. Door opens to a quiet street. Then what? Dan asks, voice tight but steady. Then you walk like you live there, she says. She hands me a sealed envelope with a thin stamp. Open at the bridge and not before. Her eyes dare me to argue as the lift slows. We step into a corridor that smells like fresh paint. A fire door pushes open onto a sleepy block. The tall woman vanishes up the shaft without a sound. I slide the envelope into my jacket and breathe once. Footsteps scatter at the corner where sirens flare. I steer us away from noise and toward the bridge. Dan keeps stride and checks windows for watchers. He points at a parked SUV and taps his thigh. Same guy, he whispers and dips his head. The silhouette inside tilts a phone toward the street. We cross early and use a delivery scooter as cover. The SUV starts and creeps with predatory patience. I quicken pace without breaking the rhythm. Dan adjusts his hood and hides his cheek. The envelope digs into my ribs and nags me open. I wait for the bridge like it promised an answer. We reach midspan and stop behind a rusted barrier. I tear the flap and spill 2 cards into my palm. 1 key card, 1 laminated letter with a logo. Also a transit tag with a number handwritten twice. Lift to platform C, the letter reads and signs off. Use the east stairs. Ticket in the tag. I pocket both and scan the bank below. A glass elevator rides the far pillar like a lure. The SUV cuts into a side lot and parks crooked. Our chaser steps out and studies footprints on dust. He scans the rail and starts walking our way. I push Dan toward the stairs and take the outside line. We run the last steps and slam the call button. The elevator crawls and hums like a bored animal. Our chaser appears at the corner and locks on us. He lifts his sleeve to talk and picks up speed. Doors open. We jump in and punch C hard. He slips a hand between the panels and yanks. I smash the close button with my fist until it wins. His face fills the gap for 1 terrible heartbeat. We shoot down and watch him shrink through glass. Dan sucks air and laughs like a kid on a slide. I press my forearm against the envelope until it creases. The doors open to a balcony full of pigeons. A gate blocks the platform with a board guard. I flash the card through the reader and wait. Green blinks twice and the lock clacks heavy. We pass through as boots thunder above like rain. 2 minutes, the guard mutters while checking the stairs. He tilts his head toward the far end with a shrug. A local train rolls in with empty benches everywhere. We board the last car and sit near the join. The SUV roars across the far lot and stops suddenly. Our chaser sprints down the wrong stair and vanishes. He reappears on the opposite platform and swears at fate. Our doors close as he reaches the last step. The train pulls away and swallows the station. I count poles slide past and match breath with motion. Dan leans into me and whispers something small. "Birthday finished," he says, and squeezes my hand. We ride 3 stops and bail into a tunnel. A sign points to an inner-city platform with white arrows. I follow it and keep us against the wall. The transit tag opens another gate like it knew us. At the far end, a woman waits by a vending machine. Knit hat hangs from her pocket like a badge. She doesn't wave or nod or smile. She just steps aside and reveals a door with a slot. "Slide the card. Walk through. Do not turn around." Her voice is calm like this is Tuesday afternoon. I grip Dan's fingers and feed the card to the slot. The door unlatches with a clunk that sounds like relief. We enter a narrow room with 2 chairs and a table. A camera blinks in the corner and then goes dark. Another door opens opposite with a soft magnet hiss. A man in a loose jacket stands there with a file. "Your signatures gave us enough," he says without preamble. "Protective intake finishes tonight if you want it." He sets the file down and looks at Dan first. "Or you can keep running until someone slips." Dan's gaze drifts to the door we came through. He nods once and straightens his back like a soldier. I press both palms flat on the table and breathe. "Finish it," I say, and hold his stare. The man slides 2 forms across with pens attached. "Print slow. Block letters. No cross lines." I write the new surname without shaking this time. Dan copies me and bites his lip to focus. The door clicks as someone tries the handle outside. Our handler glances at the camera and raises a brow. A second click follows, and then boots fade away. He gathers the forms and seals them under plastic. "Room next door has beds," he says with a nod. Small window. Heavy door. "Breakfast at 6. He opens the inner door and waits for a choice. I look at Dan, and he gives me one quiet grin. We step through and see 2 narrow frames and a sink. No posters. No television. No surprises either. I drop the pack and check the lock twice. A buzz sounds down the hall like a ward coming alive. Dan climbs under a blanket and faces the wall. I sit on the floor and keep boots on. Somewhere far off a train wails and fades to nothing. My phone is gone and the silence feels earned.